Each and every year, Jewish households around the world put so much pressure on themselves, making sure that everything is just as it needs to be for the festival of the Passover. A lot of times, men are very worried about leading a good Seder that they can instill in their youth, in their children, a good Jewish spirit and inspire them to continue to ascend in spirituality. What will we do this year? This year, many will, for the first time, have to do a Passover Seder without guests, many completely alone. One wonders if they can ever live up to Seders of previous years. And therefore I'd like to tell the following story, with the hopes that the message of this story penetrates your hearts, all of our hearts, and helps us realize truly what makes a good Seder. This story begins with Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, a great tzaddik, Hasidic master. After completing a very in-depth Seder, the next day, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev received a voice, a call from the heavens, and it told him which Seder was the most loved to the Creator in the entire world. He was shocked when he discovered that it was not his own Seder, and it was not the Seder of any great rabbi or a great tzaddik. It was the Seder of a simple Jew, Moishele, the water carrier. So the attendants of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev went to find Moishele, the water carrier, and to bring him to the Rebbe. Once he arrived, the Rebbe said, "Moishele, please tell me about your Seder last night. I have to know." Moishele began to sob. He says, "Rebbe, please, I'll never do it again. I'm so sorry, but please don't make me relive it right now by telling you what happened." The Rebbe insisted, "Moishele, please, I'm asking you, tell me." He says, "Rebbe, I can't. I don't want to. Don't make me." Finally, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev said, "I demand that you tell me the power vested in me by Torah and authority of the rabbinate." So Moshe began. He said, "Listen, Rabbi, you should know that I'm an orphan. I was an orphan from a young age, and one of the ways I've dealt with, the kind of sadness and suffering I've experienced in my lifetime is alcohol. I'm not proud to say, but I've been an alcoholic pretty much my entire life. And so to me, Passover is a very overwhelming 8 days, mainly because I can't get my fix. Wine just doesn't do it, but whiskey I can't have on Passover. So what did I decide? This year I decided a full week prior to Passover that I would drink enough to maintain that drunken state throughout the 8 days. Indeed, that's what I did. I drank and I drank and I drank a full week in advance. And come the final day, Erev Pesach, when we had to rid ourselves of all the chametz, I downed the last few drops. And I passed out. My wife came and woke me up and she said, "Moishele, time to get up. All the fathers are arriving home from synagogue and are beginning to recount the story of the Passover to their children. Our children too are waiting." Moishele said, "I'm too drunk, I'm sorry. Give me an hour." She came back an hour again. I was just so drunk, Rebbe, I couldn't get up. I didn't know what to do. I said, "Give me one more hour." And each hour she did come back. Finally she came back, she gave me a smack. She said, "You should be ashamed of yourself. Here we are approaching the hour when we can no longer partake of the afikomen in honor of the Paschal offering, and your children are the only children that haven't had a Passover Seder." Moishele said, "I felt like garbage. I was so ashamed of myself." I said, "I just need a little more time." Finally, 20 minutes later, I managed to muster the strength and get up. I told my wife, "Please go wake up the children, bring them to the table." They came and they sat at the table, rubbing their eyes. I said to them, "I'm sorry. You don't deserve this good-for-nothing husband and father that you have. I'm an alcoholic. I'm not even very learned. And I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of what's happened here today. And I promise you, I will never have another drink after tonight again." I've learned my lesson. Nevertheless, even though I'm illiterate and I'm not so knowledgeable and I'm still a bit drunk, I have an obligation on this night to tell you the story of the Passover. And so if you will be so kind as to give me just a bit of your time, I know you've been waiting all night, I'd like to give it a shot. And so he began many, many years ago, thousands of years ago, in fact. God created the first two, Adam and Eve, and they lived in the paradise. And God, at the same time, created in 7 days the heavens and the earth and everything with it. And he put them in the garden, and he told them to watch over the garden, and they sinned. And the entire civilization, all of the world came collapsing down. And it wasn't until Abraham and Sarah came to the equation that they started fixing it. And then even more so with Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Rachel and Leah. Nevertheless, ultimately, we eventually again descended into a terrible exile with Pharaoh in Egypt. And with a great show of compassion and mercy, God redeemed us. And on this day, we recount that wonderful, miraculous redemption. But we are still stuck in exile. And so we not only commemorate that first redemption, but we beseech our Father in heaven that just like you removed us from exile many years ago, so too in this generation will you, God willing, remove us from exile. And I stopped, he said to the Rebbe, and I closed my eyes and I prayed to the Creator, begging him, beseeching him to remember us once again and to free us. And after praying, I quickly had 1 cup of wine and I made Hillel's sandwich and I ate a bit of the maror, and I quickly tried to do everything, not knowing really much about how the Haggadah and the Seder works. And after having the 4th cup of wine, I collapsed on the spot, and that was it, Rebbe. So you see, not much to report on my end in terms of an inspirational Seder. At that moment, Rabbi Leady Yitzchak of Berditchev closed his eyes and in the utmost sincerity said, "Wow, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the world, what I wouldn't do to be able to have such a genuine, sincere, raw, real Seder, to convey Yiddishkeit, the Jewish belief system, to my children, the way that Moshe was able to do, so sincerely, so honestly." So you see, we may look down upon ourselves and our own Seders. However, it may very well be that just us making the effort to sincerely and honestly, with whatever resources we have during these difficult times, with whatever knowledge we have, considering all, that just may be the greatest Seder in the entire world for the Creator. Indeed, at the end of the day, God just wants true intention, a true desire to connect. May you have a kosher and a simchadik, happy festival of Pesach.